A big issue that I've seen and that I've experienced myself personally is the clutch kick. So generally when you're trying to enter, especially with a lower horsepowered car, you're gonna maybe do a feint entry or kind of a clutch kick. Feint entries can be a little bit scarier. Feint entries when you're going one direction and then throwing it the other direction, you're actually using the weight of the car. Now, a really common thing is some people will clutch kick way too hard and they'll do it kind of slow. They'll clutch like all the way in and be on the throttle a lot and then let the clutch out and it'll just spin them out. Or they'll clutch kick in and they'll not be on throttle at all, and that can actually cause you to not really even get much of a clutch kick because you're not having any power to cause that shock. As you can see, when you do it right, it's gonna cause it to be real smooth. You're gonna get that back end out and then you're gonna be able to come on throttle and start and initiate that drift successfully. Grip. Grip is probably one of the most important ones. I'll probably say that about a lot of these. These are all super important things to have dialed in on your car and techniques that you'll be using, but grip is huge. When you're starting out, a lot of people kind of have the misconception that you want your car extremely loose so that back end can go out and slide. It is true that you do want it to be able to go out and slide, but too loose and you'll find yourself just kind of spinning around. You'll initiate, whether you clutch kick, feint entry, handbrake entry, it doesn't matter. You won't have that grip to catch the car and then get on throttle and actually get into a drift. So when you have too little grip, you'll see it spin out. When you have too much grip, you'll see, just like here, you just can't get it to get into that drift. You'll go and kind of no matter how hard you throw it, it'll kind of catch back. And then you'll end up trying to overcome that, overcompensate, and you'll throw it too hard and still spin out. So you'll either spin out or you won't be able to get into that drift. Grip can be had, can either be increased or decreased in a lot of different ways, but two of the most common ways are alignment and tire pressure. So again, that's going to depend on the power level of your car, what kind of tires you're running. But for example, with this car, this is on, let's come over here and I'll show you. Essentially, you're going to want zero camber. That's going to give you a full tread patch. If you have too much grip, so once you start at zero camber, probably zero toe, as you get a little bit better and a more aggressive driver, you can toe in. That's going to make it a little bit harder to drive, but you're going to be faster. But I would say zero camber, zero toe, just a really neutral setup. That's going to give you a full contact patch with the tire. And from there, you can start messing with tire pressure, messing with coilover adjustments and all that to find that right mix where it's not too grippy and not too loose. You want to be able to throw it decently hard and be able to come off throttle and have it still slide and then kind of catch and then get on throttle and complete that drift. So that is essentially alignment and grip. It's just starting with that neutral alignment and then messing with tire pressure from there. Self-steer. Self-steer is the act of a drift car essentially steering itself. It's pretty self-explanatory. So if your hands are off the steering wheel and you're mid-drift, you can actually see the steering wheel is turning and the wheels are turning because of the way the car is rotating and the grip of the front car. So a really common issue, the one that I actually struggle with the most, and if you're from a road racing background or off-road background, essentially anything but drifting, unless you're like a rally driver or something like that, but you're used to really having those two hands on the steering wheel and maintaining really good control of the steering wheel. With drifting, you're going to want to have control, but you still want to allow the car to do its job and allow the front suspension to do what it needs to do and self-steer. So common problem is you'll be coming into a corner, you'll initiate and you'll hold on to the steering wheel. You're not allowing it to self-steer. That's going to cause you to spin out. The other end of it is you're letting go and you're never really finding control of the steering wheel again. So there is like a sweet point where you're kind of letting it slide through your hands. I mean, you can let go and come back on, but ideally, if you have a nice pair of gloves, it kind of slides through your hands real nicely, and then you're kind of catching it at that right specific point and getting back on throttle and completing the drift. So self-steer, super big, something to concentrate on. Even try just doing donuts, going in circles, and seeing how the car reacts and kind of how far you can let it spin, when you can kind of grab control. Also with some steering angle setups, you may need to give it a little bit of a throw and kind of help it get into that self-steer. but it really is important to remember, let go of that steering wheel, let it do its job, and then get back in control. Speed is obviously super important. Beyond speed, it's kind of looking ahead and planning your lines. So figuring out how much speed you need, whether it's too much or too little. Too much is going to see you flying off the track or trying to overcompensate and kind of overextending. Too little speed, you're not going to get to that corner and be able to make it around the entire corner. So a real common thing is looking just right in front of you. If you have any kind of road racing background or anything like that, where you learn to look at the turns and plan out, 3 turns ahead, you're not looking right here, you're looking like way out there. That's a really big thing to start thinking about, is look further out, plan what's going to happen. What you're going to do here is going to impact that next turn, and your speed here is going to impact your speed coming out of the corner, and thus your speed going into the next corner. So too little speed, you're not going to make it around the corner. Too much speed, you're going to go flying off the track, which is never good. So concentrate on looking down the track. Another big thing is don't just go for it on your first run. Road race the track. Go like 70-80%. Kind of go through, feel the corners, feel the body roll of the car, figure out the line, and then come through and drift it rather than just going full bore on the first run. Handbrake. So handbrake, guys, handbrake is a tool. It's not a crutch. So remember that. When you're first beginning drifting, getting started, do not worry about this thing. Whether it's the pull-up, stock handbrake, hydraulic, whatever it is, leave it alone. Learn to drift the track. You should be able to successfully link the track without using the handbrake before you even start learning how to use it. It really is a tool. It's a great tool. It's a necessary tool, but I see a lot of people, luckily for me, like I was told right when I started, hey, don't use the handbrake, learn without it. So I myself didn't struggle with this issue, but I've seen people where they don't know how to clutch kick or feint entry. They're just using that handbrake, which is creating a really slow, like not exciting entry, as well as one where, some corners it's not possible to handbrake entry. If it's let's say it's a long corner where you have a bunch of speed and it goes long and then kind of shortens up, you're going to want to use that feint entry and have that vehicle speed to come all the way around, especially if you're a lower horsepowered car and you need to use more inertia rather than the power of the car. But once you are there, you are linking the track and you're drifting, good job, then start to use the handbrake. Handbrake's a great tool. Like I said, you can use it for entries. Certain corners, it does make perfect sense to use the handbrake. Maybe if it's a really long straight and you want to get that speed and then kind of slow it down a little bit, you still may clutch kick or feint entry, but you can kind of use this to kind of slow yourself down and set the car where you want it. As well as this is a great tool. Most tracks aren't built for drifting, so you'll find corners that are they're round and then there's a straight and a round. If you need to kind of make that corner and it's not wide enough where you can extend the car out, maybe you'll grab a little bit of handbrake to kind of slide that car sideways. So handbrake, if you pull the handbrake in a turn, that's actually going to pull you in like a straight line, essentially away from the apex. Whereas if you left foot brake or hit the brakes, you're going to stay in a more round arc, which is actually going to essentially pull you closer to the apex. Suspension setup and wheel sizes. This is a big one. I don't feel like the knowledge is necessarily out there and easy to find, so that's kind of why we included this one. You can easily find how to get sick HelloFlush fitment, but not necessarily what's ideal for drifting and really going to help you not fight your car. Get yourself some nice front tires. You don't necessarily need Achilles 123s, even though those are the best tires in the world. Thank you, Achilles. But get yourself something grippy. If you're running street tires in the front, you are a little bit of a disadvantage. You can still make it work, but front tires are going to last you a while. Shell out, get something a little bit nicer. The rear, once you have your alignment sorted out and you're kind of working on tire pressures, it's not as critical what you run in the rear, in my opinion. Like on this car, we're running Delentis, which are just cheap Chinese tires. I get them for like 65 bucks a tire, and we're driving with some of the other pro drivers in this car. And so it can work. That's not as critical. Save yourself money in the rear. Just get something, use the suspension, use the coilovers and alignment to find that grip. And then on that, hot boys, we like to be low, right? This car, in my opinion, is about as low as you want to go and still maintain functionality. So as you can see, this tire is almost under the fender, but it's not. I still have full turning angle. In the rear, there is a slight amount of tuck, because everyone knows if you ain't tucking, you ain't fucking. But well, I'm not like totally dumped where the car is gonna bottom out. I can still use the suspension travel. So find that right mix. If you're building a car just to be a hot boy, that's totally fine, I get it. But if you're trying to look to help yourself excel and not struggle with the car, raise it up a little bit, figure it out, and then maybe you can come back lower. So those are super critical. Angle. So with angle comes how you use it as well as how much your car has. You can drift a car on stock angle, but I would say just to kind of help yourself out a little bit, either get some rack spacers, shave the bump stops, just do some minimal stuff to just gain a couple more degrees. Some cars, especially like the Genesis Coupe, has so little angle from the factory, it is almost impossible to drift. Even someone that has some experience, I would still struggle really getting that thing to drift well. So look at really cheap, even free mods you can do, like just shaving bump stops. Rack spacers are like 20, 30 bucks. That's really gonna help you get even to like 35, 40 degrees, which is more than enough for drifting. Again, you don't need WiseFab or some crazy angle kit to get started drifting. I love WiseFab, like it is a great angle kit as well as PBM and many of these others, but it is not necessary to get drifting and even excel and have a lot of fun. On the Laurel that I drove for a long time, that was just a backyard angle kit. It was a modified knuckle and an extended lower control arm. So that kind of brings the bottom of the wheels out, adds a little front camber, and increases the steering angle. It probably had 50, 55 degrees. That was super fun. That's more than you'll need until you're really even trying to compete, honestly. Focusing too much on the build. This is the last one. I think this is one of the most important ones. If you're gonna remember anything from this video, please pay attention and remember this. As a builder and customizer myself, I love building cars, love making them look cool, putting time and money into the car. But the biggest thing is get yourself out on the track, get practice. I see a lot of people, myself included sometimes, I'm not being critical of just you guys, focusing too much on, you know, getting 500 horsepower, having two-step, having this crazy wing, custom taillights, all this cool stuff, and we never actually get out and drive, or the car gets out and it breaks. So if you really are someone who's trying to get out and learn to drift, have fun, enjoy the sport, just get out there and go. Look at all the other stuff I mentioned, get those things dialed in. That shouldn't take more than a month maybe, let's say, to get your car ready to go, and then go out and have fun. And as you progress, add those tools and those things on, those better parts that you need as you need them, not as you just want to put them on to have a more serious build. That's gonna help you get more track time, have more fun, and excel a lot faster, as well as teach you what you really want. When you're beginning learning, you might think you want this or that because somebody has it, but you may find you really want this other thing that's so much better for you, and you may have just wasted your money on something because you thought it was the cool thing to have. So remember, just get out there and drive, have fun, practice, and excel.